Hey, go people. this is this is a good one. Okay, now I'm going to warn you right now. Watch the whole video before you comment. Otherwise, you'll be crying in there about how I got it wrong and how I jumped to conclusions. Watch the whole video. Okay, I'm going to take you on a little trip into a cop's world. So, this black officer pulls over a white guy. The white guy gets in his face, tries to get out of his car, and tries to fight with him. And the black officer ends up getting suspended. Total BS. This guy was absolutely wrong. The white guy that jumped out of the car was wrong. And they suspend the poor black officer. Watch this video. Happens quick. This guy is totally aggressive. He tries to get out of the car. The cop tries to stop him. The guy is totally forceful. I mean, this cop absolutely had every reason to believe that this guy was a no person, and he took him to the ground like he should have. I don't know where this is in Miami, but man, this guy gets back up. They must have 1,000 cops running around because this guy has 4 cops on this call in under a minute. 4 units. We're only a minute into the video. 4 units are there. Amazing. Okay. So, looking at this video, who thinks the cop is right and his driver is wrong for jumping out on a cop? And he should have been taken to the ground. Raise your hand. All right. Well, let's watch it again because you might change your opinion with more information, which normally happens and which you should do. When you get more information, you should change your opinion. So let's watch this again with more information. This cop recognizes the driver. He pulls him over for speeding, 9 miles over. The driver is a lieutenant in the police department. And this cop knows he's a lieutenant. And the lieutenant showed him his ID card when he walked up there. And the lieutenant asked him why he had fuzz on his face. This is against policy. And the officer said, that's none of your business. And then when he got out of the car, the officer grabbed him, knowing that he was a lieutenant on the department. Now, let's look at this. Again, they're having their exchange about you were speeding. The plainclothes officer says, why you got that hair on the face? He opens the car, gets out. The cop says, stay in the car. The lieutenant says, screw you, I'm a lieutenant. And now they take the lieutenant to the ground. So, is the cop right or wrong? Because in police work, we're always taught that when uniform approach plainclothes, uniform are always in control. Because they don't know that you're plainclothes, they don't know you're an officer. Therefore, you must comply with the uniform until you make sure they know you're an officer. So, and one of my crazy cop stories, I tell about the highway patrol that tried to get me to lay down my gun, stop fighting with a dude on the side of the road. And another unit of my guys in plainclothes showed up. And we told them to screw off. But most law enforcement is always taught uniforms show up, they're in control. But, the caveat to that is you got to use reason. Just because you're in uniform doesn't mean that if you know somebody and you recognize them, that you can treat them like you don't know them and like they have to obey your commands, even though you jeopardize their safety, you don't know what they're doing. Now, I was a little on the fence on this because I'm like, look, even if the guy is a lieutenant, he was speeding, the uniform officer pulled him over, he shouldn't have jumped out of the car and gotten his face. And maybe the officer shouldn't have thrown him to the ground. But I don't know. So we have 4 officers from the same agency with the lieutenant on the ground. I don't know how many people they have in this agency, and I don't know whether everybody knows everybody, and this lieutenant is screaming, I'm a lieutenant, I'm a lieutenant. They finally end up letting the guy up. They're holding him down for a while. So they're still kind of figuring out what's going on, whether he is a lieutenant, whether he isn't, maybe his ID. I don't know if anybody recognizes this guy or if they do recognize him. The cop just said, you know who the F I am. Great. Dog saying, hey, dude, let me out. I'll take care of this. So what I think is happening is the other officer's claiming, I didn't know you were a cop. You jumped out on me, and that's why I took you to ground. I didn't know. He's saying you knew because I showed him the ID. I don't know if he showed him the ID or not. And even if he did show him the ID, why do you have to reach in on the floorboard and get his ID? It should have been in his hand when he got out. So I don't necessarily believe this lieutenant 100%. But I don't necessarily believe the officer 100% either. And I'll tell you why in a minute. Now, I've been in agencies to where there's no way you know everybody. I mean, working in Sacramento County with Sac PD, you got 900 officers on both agencies. You got 1,800 officers jail. There's no way you know every lieutenant, every captain, every assistant chief, deputy chief, assistant chief to the deputy chief. You just don't know everybody. So if this cop doesn't know and has never met this guy, I'm on his side. If he went up to the car and this guy did show him ID and he told him to shut up and there was a personal beef, then I'm not on his side. Again, I'd have to know more information. The chief is taking this guy's lieutenant side. So now let's get some more information on this and see if you change your opinion. Because you still, from seeing this video, may have a wrong opinion.
One officer versus another in a fight. Tonight we get a closer look at the police officers involved and if they've been in trouble before. Miami Police Department with the new details for us, Steve.
And Jackie, that video certainly is sensational, been public since about Monday. The lieutenant who was involved in that fight is still on the job. The lower ranked officer, though, suspended. And many people have been asking, why is one officer still on the job and the other? Police here is explaining his decision.
Okay, so they suspended the uniform officer who was supposedly in charge, and they didn't suspend the lieutenant. And you probably think, well, they suspended him probably because he grabbed a lieutenant. No. Well, they suspended him because he used too much force. No. You're not going to believe why they suspended
him. Two Miami police officers fight. Only the lower ranked officer is relieved of duty, and now the chief is explaining why. Officer Marcel Jackson used his personal GoPro camera to record traffic stops, including last month's scuffle with the lieutenant, and that's against department policy. In a written...
Are you freaking kidding me? They suspended this dude for using his own video camera. Now, as soon as I heard that, I went, how freaking stupid. This cop could get killed The department isn't issuing him a camera, so he uses his own camera to protect him, to show evidence of what the guy did, and they suspend him for using a GoPro, his own camera. Man, I was like, are you freaking kidding me? I was like, how can an agency do that? Well, wait. Here's how an agency's going to justify it.
Statement, Chief Manuel Arosa said the camera use is one reason why Officer Jackson is suspended and Lieutenant David Ramirez is not. The chief also cites the officer's discipline history. Lieutenant Ramirez, a 28-year department veteran, has 2 reprimands for car accidents and 2 citizen complaints.
Okay, for a 28-year officer to only have 2 complaints, 2 reprimands, I'm okay with that. Because, I mean, usually to get a reprimand, you got to do something pretty bad. But 2 citizen complaints, this lieutenant ain't done much. Okay? If you're dealing with bad guys, you're getting complaints almost daily. The more arrests you make, the more complaints you get. The more high-profile felony, drug, assault gangs, the more times you do probation searches, parole searches, you're kicking doors, you're getting complaints. It's just part of the job. So for this guy to have 2 complaints in 28 years, Lieutenant, you are a suck-up sitting behind a desk doing nothing dude, and I don't even have to know you. Not to mention, you got thrown to the ground like a little biatch.
Jackson, on the force 8 years, has 15 reprimands, 20 citizen complaints, in all suspended 400 hours.
Okay, that seems like a lot. So, is this most officers probably would be gone by now? And I think the officer, he's either black, Hispanic, he's not white. And so he could be part of the quota hire protection system, and that's why he's there. And that's why I have a problem with quota hires, is because once you hire them, you can't get rid of them, even if they do bad, even if you've identified they're bad. I'm not saying this officer's bad. I don't know. From this incident, I'm not taking the white lieutenant's position. I'm taking a black officer because you just can't know all the lieutenants. But the chief, the fact that the chief put out this guy's record violates most peace officers' Bill of Rights. I don't know what Florida is. In California, he couldn't do that. This guy would have a lawsuit and he would win. But normally, for an attorney to get this information, they have to do a motion of the court and have to ask for his suspension history. I don't know how this cop, with 15 reprimands, what they were for, and all these suspensions, I don't know how the defense attorneys on the stand aren't saying, how can you believe this officer? Look at his record. So there's a lot of issues with this case, but to suspend a guy because he's using a camera to record himself just on a face is BS. However, government will always find unique ways to justify when they do something that stinks to high heaven. Listen to this justification.
Whenever uniform and plain clothes encounter each other, the uniform wins.
This is the weasel from the sheriff's department. I don't know why he's even running his lips on this.
Broward County Sheriff Scott Israel, not commenting on this specific case, uses that catchphrase, the uniform wins, when talking about officers or deputies encountering each other.
It shouldn't matter where the police officer or the deputy works, and it certainly shouldn't matter what rank they occupy. The person clearly in charge is the person in uniform affecting the traffic stop.
Police dash cams, when used properly, have become invaluable tools.
When used properly. So when is it used improperly? When you videotape it yourself, it's improper use? That's BS.
Not just for the authorities, also for defendants, oftentimes helping prove they did not commit a crime.
To know what happened, to have a pictorial, to have audio, to listen to what happened, it's always a good thing. You know, that kind of evidence is excellent for evaluation, for court, what have you.
In response to Chief Arosa's suspension of Officer Jackson, his attorney released a statement saying in part, the chief has no personal knowledge of the facts and no formal statements have been taken, yet the chief has already formed an opinion and publicly taken sides in this matter.
Whoa, that's a great statement. See, the chief is the chief administrative officer, and he's going to make a decision to fire this guy and to take action. and he's supposed to be non-biased, and he's supposed to wait for an investigation. He's supposed to read all the facts, gather evidence, and then make a determination on how to handle it and mitigating factors, etc. And the chief has already slandered the one officer, relieved him of duty, and made him look guilty. The chief is not non-biased. That's clear. Maybe he's got reason for not being. Maybe the 15 reprimands and the 400-hour suspension has made him not biased, but he can't take sides until the investigation is done. This attorney's statement here is really gave a great defense to the officer.
So this whole ordeal started with a traffic stop, with the officer claiming the lieutenant was speeding, and Chief Orosa's memo, in fact, does say that lieutenant was going 9 miles an hour over the speed limit. The state attorney's office is investigating this case. Live in Miami, I'm Steve Litz, NBC6 South Florida.
So here's how the department's going to cover their butt to discipline the officer for making recordings of his own. A citizen has the right to request these recordings to prove their innocence. Wow, the department's concerned about a citizen's rights and their innocence? Shocking. The department could be found in violation of state public records retention laws because of Jackson's actions. So they're setting the officer up to say, hey, you've been recording these, and the poor citizens could be innocent, and you didn't give us these tapes, and we weren't allowed to give them to the public if they requested, and we didn't know they existed. Therefore, you violated policy. Are they correct? Unfortunately, they are correct. I think they're using this as a scapegoat to get this guy. I think they probably know a lot of officers record themselves. And I think if they're going to hold an officer accountable for recording himself and not telling him, then they ought to be held accountable for not providing the officer the ability to record. You got departments who have recordings and officers complain that they have to record everything. You have other officers who are like, you know what, I like recordings. I want to prove that I'm innocent, and I want it on record when I do something. And I'm going to go back to this video, and I think the officer was generally confused and did not know this guy was a lieutenant. Remember, officers' actions are judged by the totality of circumstances. And watching this video, I don't think this officer recognized this guy. You can tell he kind of panics and reached back for his gun or his radio because he's genuinely in fear, like, who the hell is this guy? Why is he jumping out on me? I do not think this guy recognized him. And unless they could prove without a doubt he knows him, I think this officer ought to be found in the right. He's trying to hold him back, saying, whoa, dude, whoa, relax. Whoa. Cop does not have a badge on, does not have a gun on. See that officer reach back there? That totally tells me that he's like panicking. He's trying to get to his radio to call for help. He's trying to reach for he's trying to do something. It's not like, hey, I'm just going to go ahead and fight with this guy because this is fun and I know him. I think this officer is genuinely in fear, and I don't think he knows the guy. I do not think he knows the guy. So I went to the police department here just to see what kind of command structure. I think they have close to 1,500 officers, best I can tell. 1,500 officers. How many lieutenants do you think they got? I can't find the number of lieutenants, but let's just look at the executive staff. That guy's got like 4 stars. This guy's got 2 stars. That guy's got 3 stars. This girl's got 3 stars. This guy's got a suit. This girl has, I don't know, guy, girl, whatever. I don't want to get in trouble. This person has 2 stars. This person has 2 or 3 stars. This person has 2 stars. This person has 2 stars. And this person is either 2 stars also. So these are just the stars. These aren't, I don't see any single stars. So they haven't showed the single stars. They haven't showed the single captains. And they haven't showed the single lieutenants. So I can only imagine there's probably well over 30 to 50 lieutenants in this agency. There's no way that every officer knows every lieutenant. It's not going to happen. But which leads me to believe more this guy did not recognize this guy. But it is what it is. I set you up first to think. I wanted you to kind of see how easy it was to jump to conclusions when you see a video, because of what you're told or what you hear. And then when all the facts become clear, the situation becomes more muddy, even though we have video. Multitude of factors here. This guy was wrong. He's in civilian clothes. He wasn't in uniform. He didn't have a gun and badge on. Even if he did reach or pull out his ID card, even if he verbally ID'd himself, this officer doesn't know what he's got. He's pulling over a guy. The guy gets in the face and says, "Hey, man, I'm a cop." And he starts reaching around a car. I don't know if you're just saying that so you can reach for a gun. More and more I look into this, I'm on this guy's side. I know people are going to say, "Rick, come on. The guy's got 15 reprimands, 400 hours of suspensions. How can you be on his side?" Because all those does not have anything to do with this. It may have a prior history. He may have made some mistakes. He may be a little overgrown. He may be a lot of things. But in this situation, it appears that he acted accordingly, and this lieutenant was being a jerk and being high and mighty, like every officer should show me I'm important. I'm a lieutenant. How dare you stop me for speeding? How dare you not recognize my authority? How dare you not immediately bow down to me because I'm a lieutenant? And then the chief immediately comes out, takes the lieutenant aside, and throws this guy under a bus for using his own video camera and equipment to protect himself. More and more, I go for this guy. But again, with more information, I may change my mind. Stay open. Try to have an open mind. Critically think. Evaluate things. In police work and the law, it always comes down to this term, totality of circumstances. You'll hear it used a lot. And it means everything put together, not isolated. Lieutenant, lower ranking. Lieutenant wins. Uniform, plain clothes. Uniform wins. Officer stopping a car, officer right, person in car wrong. It doesn't play out that way. Always have to take all things known to the officer at the time, known to this guy at the time, known to the people evaluating it when they evaluate it. It all comes down to totality of circumstances. Hopefully you got something out of it. We'll end that there.